Hello and welcome back to another ESO build guide. I'm Dying Legacy and this is the Dragon Rage build, a stamina Dragonknight for solo content. This is a melee only version of my Scalebreaker build, packing strong damage, AoE and survivability. This Dragonknight takes full advantage of its DPS and tanking strengths to pull you by the neck and drag you through veteran dungeons and arenas. This is a quick build guide. We'll be going over the race, attributes, Munda Stones, food, potions, gear, skills, passives, and the champion point slottables. The info will be minimal, so I'll only be going over what's necessary. However, do feel free to comment below if you'd like a full detailed guide or if there's anything I could do better. With the intro covered, let's go over the Dragon's Rage build. Starting with the race, it doesn't really matter what you use, it's an RPG, you play as you prefer. But if you're looking for suggestions, I would recommend either the Red Guard if you're looking for more sustain, the Khajiit for extra critical damage, or an Orc for extra weapon damage. For the attributes, we are putting 64 points into stamina, and for the Munda Stone, when we're doing solo content, we are taking the Lover's Munda Stone for extra spell and physical penetration. When doing content as part of a group, we'll be taking the Thief Munda Stone for that extra critical rating. For our food, we are taking the Artaeum Takeaway Broth to increase our health recovery, max stamina, and stamina recovery. You can pick these up at a guild vendor or make it yourself if you have the recipe. This can be rather expensive to get your hands on, in which case the cheaper option is the Dubious Cameronian Throne. The stats are slightly lower and it doesn't give health recovery, but it's a very small difference and overall it doesn't matter which one you use. And this can still be gotten from either a guild vendor or you can make it yourself, all on the cheap. For our potions, we are using Essence of Weapon Power, which grants us major brutality, major savagery, major endurance, and restores a little stamina immediately. We'll be using these for those longer and tougher fights. We can grab these at a guild vendor, or we can make them at the alchemy station. If you haven't got any on you at the time, you can always pop an Essence of Stamina instead. This will give you major endurance and restore a little stamina immediately. They might not be as useful as weapon power potions, but they are better than nothing and they do drop from almost every mob among Tamriel, so your bag will probably be full of them. Moving on to the gear now, we have the option to use a Maelstrom Greatsword and the Pale Order Ring on this build. They aren't necessary by any means and we have options around them in their stead, which we'll go over first. We're using 7 medium armor pieces on this build, all with the Divine trait and a Stamina enchant, and for the jewellery we're using the Bloodthirsty trait and weapon damage enchants. For our weapons we're using dual daggers for our front bar, our main hand will be a Nirnhone with a poison enchant, and our offhand will be charged with a fire enchant. For our back bar we're taking a two-handed greatsword with the Infuse trait and a weapon damage enchant. Moving on to the sets themselves, starting with the body pieces, which are the chest, waist, hands, legs and feet. Our first choice is a trial set and it's the Arms of Reliquance set. This set is gotten from Cloudrest and on veteran difficulty you can get a perfected version, which adds extra stamina to the set. It's a minor increase compared to the unperfected version from normal, so it doesn't matter what version you actually use. The set itself gives us critical chance, minor slayer at all times, and our light and heavy attacks add a stacking damage over time effect to our targets that lasts for 5 seconds and it stacks up to 10 times. If you haven't stepped into a trial or want to use something else, you can use Sogvan's Warband set, which is gotten in the DLC dungeon Frostvault. This set adds critical chance and offensive penetration, and when you deal critical damage, your critical chance will increase for 5 seconds, and it can stack for 10 times, and at max stats you'll gain minor force. If you're looking for a little more healing, you could also go with Briarheart, which is gotten from Hrothgar Overland content, such as Dells, World Bosses, and public dungeons. You can also pick it up at a guild vendor. Briarheart comes with critical chance and maximum stamina, and when you deal critical damage, your weapon and spell damage increases for 10 seconds, and during this proc, you'll heal when you do critical damage. For our weapons and jewellery, we are going with the Pillar of Nirn set, which is gotten from the DLC dungeon Valkyrie Hold. This will give us max stamina, critical chance, and weapon and spell damage, and when you deal damage, you'll deal bleed damage to enemies near you and cause them to take extra bleed damage for 10 seconds. For our monster sets, for our helm and shoulder slots, we can use the Bloodspawn set. This helm can be gotten from Spindleclutch 2 on Veteran, and the shoulders from the Undaunted vendors. This set adds stamina recovery, and when we take damage we have a chance to gain extra ultimate and to increase our resistances by 3601 for 5 seconds. Another good choice is the Slimecraw set from Wayrest Sewers 1. Again, the helm from Veteran difficulty and the shoulder from an Undaunted vendor. Slimecraw will add extra critical chance, and it gives us minor berserk at all times. Now for the Ring of the Pale Order, which is gotten from the Antiquity system, and when using this we will heal for 20% of all the damage we do. We can't be healed by anyone else but ourselves, and the healing we do does decrease when we're in groups. The ring will take up a ring slot obviously, so we'll need to wear our jewellery set on either our shoulder or helm. The slot doesn't really matter. We will lose our 2 set bonus from our monster sets, but we are aiming to keep the 5 set bonus from our jewellery set. And overall, the Pale Order ring does make up for it. You can stick with Bloodspawn or Slimecraw for the One Piece bonus, or you could also use the Magma Incarnate set. The head is found in the Dreadcellar DLC dungeon on Veteran, and the shoulder from an Undaunted vendor. Magma Incarnate's 1 set bonus will give us magic and stamina recovery, which is fantastic overall for our sustain. Lastly is the Maelstrom 2-handed sword, which is gotten from Maelstrom Arena, and we'll be using this on our back bar. There's a perfected version from the Veteran difficulty which adds extra offensive penetration. It doesn't matter which version we use, as we are more interested in the base effect, which is when dealing damage with critical charge, we cause enemies to bleed for over 7 seconds. Now that covers all the gear, and so we'll be moving straight on to the skills, starting with the front bar. Our first skill up is Venomous Claw, which is morphed from Searing Strike and found in the Ardent Flame skill line. This will deal poison damage to an enemy in melee range and will cause the enemy to take poison damage for 14 seconds. The damage from this dot increases over time, so don't spam this attack. Next is Blood Craze, morphed this from Twin Slashes, found in the Dual Wield skill line. This will deal bleed damage and cause the enemy to bleed for 10 seconds and heals us for over its duration. On to Noxious Breath next, which is morphed from Fiery Breath and can be found in the Ardent Flame skill line. This will deal poison damage to enemies within range, and they will continue to take poison damage for 14 seconds, and it will also apply Major Breach to the enemy's hit. We're also using Volatile Armour, morphed from Spiked Armour and is found in the Draconic Power skill line. We'll spray spikes around us, causing enemies to take magic damage for 10 seconds and giving us Major Resolve, and when enemies attack us from melee range, we'll return some of the damage back to the enemy. Next is Cauterize, morphed from Inferno and found in the Ardent Flame skill line. This will cause us to heal ourselves over 15 seconds, and while slotted, will grant us Major Prophecy and Major Savagery. For the ultimate on the front bar, we are using Flawless Dawnbreaker, morphed from Dawnbreaker and found in the Fighters Guild skill line. You'll deal physical damage to the enemies in front of you, and additional physical damage over 6 seconds, and after activating will increase our weapon and spell damage by 300 for 20 seconds. Next we'll move on to the back bar skills, and first up is Stampede, which is morphed from Critical Charge, which is also found in the 2-handed skill line. You'll charge at an enemy and deal physical damage to them and nearby enemies. This is always a critical strike. You'll also leave an AoE under their feet for 15 seconds that deals physical damage. And of course, if you're using the Maelstrom 2-handed sword, you'll also cause the enemies to bleed. Next is Carve, which is morphed from Cleave, which is found in the 2-handed skill line. You'll deal bleed damage to enemies in front of you and cause them to bleed for 12 seconds. Hitting an enemy again will increase the duration up to 30 seconds. This also gives us a damage shield. We are also using Consuming Trap, morphed from Soul Trap and found in the Soul skill line. This deals magic damage for 10 seconds, and if the affected enemy dies, it will fill an empty soul gem and restore magicka, stamina and health to us. Next is Barb Trap, morphed from Trap Beast, and can be found in the Fighters Guild skill line. The trap deals bleed damage and causes enemies to bleed for 18 seconds and grants you minor force. We are also using Echoing Vigor, morphed from Vigor, which is found in the Assault skill line. This will heal us for over 10 seconds. The ultimate on the back bar is Standard of Might, which is morphed from Dragonknight Standard and found in the Ardent Flame skill line. This will place a flag in front of you and deal flame damage for 20 seconds to any enemy standing in it. It will also apply Major Maim. If you or allies stand near the flag, you and your allies will take 15% less damage, and you'll also deal 15% more damage. An ally near the standard can also activate the Shackle synergy, dealing flame damage to enemies and immobilizing them for 5 seconds. That covers all the skills, so let's quickly go over the passives, starting with our class passives. First up is the Ardent Flame skill line. In here we want to take Combustion, Warmth, Searing Heat and World in Ruin. And in the Draconic skill line we'll be taking Iron Skin, Burning Heart, Elder Dragon and Scaled Armour. And in the Earthen Heart skill line we want to take Battle Roar and Helping Hands. We're not using any Earthen Heart abilities, so the other passives won't be used or take effect. We're using dual daggers, so we'll take everything in the dual wield skill line. These are Slaughter, Dual Wield Expert, Control Fury, Ruffian and Twin Blade and Blunt. Next is the two-handed skill line. Again, we'll take everything. This includes Forceful, Balanced Blade, Follow Up and Battle Rush. We're also wearing a full set of medium armor, so we'll be taking everything in the medium armor skill line as well, which are Windwalker, Improved Sneak, Agility and Athletics. Next up is the guild passives, and we'll start with the Fighter's Guild skill passives. In here we'll be taking Slayer, Banish the Wicked and Skill Tracker. And next up is the Undaunted passives. In here we'll be taking Undaunted Command and Undaunted Metal. Now, onto an optional skill which can be found in the Insult skill line. You don't really need to take this, but it is handy as it would help us get around a map quicker. And it's Continuous Attack. We only need to put 1 point into this to get Major Gallop. We get nothing extra for adding any extra points. Moving on to the racial passives, these are specific to your race, so grab everything. Do have a quick read over them so you know what they do and how to use them, and just so you can understand what benefits and advantages you have. And lastly, one more optional passive, which I would class as a necessary passive, and it's Medicinal Use, which is found in the Alchemy skill line. This causes our potions to last much longer and makes potions outlast their cooldown, so you can always have a potion active. And that covers all the passives, and with that out of the way, we're going to move straight on to the champion point slottables, beginning with the Warfare tree. In here, you will find Fighting Finesse to increase critical damage and critical healing, Deadly Aim to increase your damage done with single target attacks. We'll be taking Thaumaturge to increase our damage done with damage over time effects, and Master at Arms to increase our damage done with direct damage attacks. Next, into the Fitness tree skill line, we will be taking Boundless Vitality to increase health, Fortify to increase our armor, Rejuvenation to increase our sustain, and we'll also be taking Bloody Renewal to increase our sustain further. And next into the Craft skill line, it doesn't really matter what you take in here, everything here is basically situational and it's dependent on the person or individual. But if you plan on doing solo content and such, a good recommendation would be to take Treasure Hunter to increase the quality of items in treasure chests, Rationeer to increase the duration of food, Liquid Efficiency, which gives a small little chance for us when using potions or poisons to not actually consume it, and also Steed's Blessing, which will increase our out of combat movement speed. And that's everything for the champion point slottables, and it also covers the Dragon Rage build. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope this was helpful or gave you some ideas for your own builds, and if it did, why not like and subscribe? It helps me a lot and I appreciate any support I get. Plus, I try to do a build once a week and it'll help you stay in the loop. If you've any thoughts, suggestions, or just want to have a chat, comment below, please. I'll love chatting to everyone. I also stream on Twitch over at twitch.tv/dyinglegacy if you happen to be looking for more content or just like to watch ESO in general. I do also do some kind of variety content as well, but I mostly do MMOs, where I mostly swear, get trolled for getting lost all the time. But anywho, that's the end of the video. Thanks again, guys. You've been absolutely fantastic. I've been Dying Legacy, and until next time, stay awesome.